You know, I love making these weekly update videos, but I've realized that lately I've been talking about kind of the same thing, Dresden Files, the Cosmere, but I figure I'm going to try to change it up a little bit this week. I'm going to kind of do what I used to do with my old Geek Media Corps podcast, and we're going to talk about a little bit more than books this week, so buckle up, baby. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. We are far into May now, a whole week. We made it. We haven't fell apart yet. You know what? And I think in some places around the country, the quarantine's starting to let up just a little bit. So people are going out and about and breathing the free air again once, as my man Gandalf once said. But guys, I do realize that I have been kind of repeating myself because I've been working through this this schedule of Dresden Files, stuff like that. So yes, real quick, I do want to say I did finish Small Favor, and I'm going to probably doing that review sometime next week. I enjoyed this one more than I enjoyed White Knight. I know that's very predictable. A lot of people had guessed that due to the characters and the storyline and the big bads that were in it and stuff like that. Yes, I have done 9 in-depth reviews for the series. It's easy to see what characters I like and what characters I'm not crazy about, what story arcs I'm not crazy about. But I did enjoy this one quite a bit, and I will be talking about it in depth sometime early next week. I also finished Valor. You know, I've been talking about Faithful and the Fallen quite a bit on this channel for as long as I can remember, whatever. Now that it's actually happening, it's crazy to think I'm already halfway done, you know, because it seemed like forever I was thinking about reading this book, and now I'm halfway done with it. And guys, good. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to be doing individual reviews for these because I don't feel like the series is well known enough, and you don't want to hear me do 4 non-spoiler reviews of me saying the same thing. You know, I'm just going to tell you there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of locations, the twists and turns are great, and you need to read it. That's all that non-spoiler reviews are going to be with these. So what I plan to do is I already did that that brief little why I decided to read, which kind of turned into why you should read on the series. And I think when I'm done with the quartet, then I'll probably put together a non-spoiler and then some spoiler thoughts at the end. I think that'd be the best way to go with it. But guys, if you just want a non-spoiler review, I'll give it to you right now. This is a crazy good fantasy series, and you all should be reading it if you're not intimidated by large casts of characters and lots of locations. Every bit as good as just about every other modern fantasy series that I've really hyped up a lot in this channel. And I don't say that lightly. It's really good. And the fact that I've got so many people on the Discord reading it right now, and people that I've influenced to pick this up or whatever, I hope that you guys are feeling the same way that I do, because I just love it. And I don't understand how more within the community don't know John Gwynn's name. This guy gets to the point. You look at these things, you say, these are beefy books. He gets to the point. And I never once feel bored in his books. I don't feel like there's a single chapter where I'm like, yeah, it could have been like, 10 pages short. Never, never. Guy is just, he's a good writer. That's all I'm going to say, or whatever. But I did talk about my updated schedule earlier this week, and I'll put that up here for you. Actually, it was yesterday. I don't say earlier this week. I'm just used to saying that, I guess. I did it yesterday, and I don't like to do too many of, hey, here's my TBR. I don't want to be that guy who does it. Here's my TBR every month. Because it just feels like it's, yeah, you told me this last month. So what I did is I talked about the rest of May, then June and July, what the actual itinerary is, which, as you know, is always subject to change or whatnot. But I like to keep people updated with that because there are things that I'm adding in. And, occasionally something might fall off. Really, it just depends. When I schedule 5 or 6 books in a month, sometimes that's just not going to happen. Sometimes it's going to be less, sometimes it's going to be more. And, for the rest of May, I do have some Dresden Files and some more Faithful Fallen. We'll be starting book 3 of Faithful the Fallen, probably after I finish recording this video, because book 2 did not end in a way that's like, okay, I can stop there for a while. No, and a lot of people say that the first 2 books, good. The last 2 books, incredible. So if that is the case, man, can't wait. And then it's my last Dresden Files before I get to Changes, the one that everyone is apparently just on pins and needles waiting for me to get to. So it's going to be happening in May. The goal is to read Turncoat, read Ruin, and then do Changes to close out the month of May or whatnot. But you said check out that if you want to know what the rest of my schedule looks like, or how I plan to finish Faith No Fallen, how I'm going to get to the new Stephen King, how I am actually talking about picking up and starting the Lycanius trilogy at the beginning of summer, but also Mistborn Era 2 is going to be starting in June with Alloy of Law. So watch out for that. And guys, I give you one promise. The Hero of Ages review and the Mistborn trilogy kind of wrap-up episode, including the 11th Metal, that review will happen before I start Mistborn Era 2. So sorry that's just kind of fallen by the wayside. Honestly, those reviews didn't get a ton of traffic or discussion the way that I really like, so that's why I didn't make it a priority. But it is going to happen. I'm a completionist by nature. It's going to happen. So I do apologize for the delay there, but it will happen or whatnot. I did also talk about Michael Crichton earlier this week, why you should read on him. Guys, if you don't know by now, Michael Crichton is right up there with Stephen King. Is like one of my favorite authors growing up in the 90s, coming of age during that decade. King and Crichton, man, that was it for me. That was everything. And I think what I liked so much about Crichton was that he wasn't afraid to get into the nitty-gritty of science in his books. And he wasn't afraid to take chances. And he would also talk about things that he thought the directions that we were heading in. And you know what? I say 9 out of 10. He was usually pretty close to accurate on them, depending on how you look on them. Yeah, there are some controversial things in there, and you know, the comments for that video show that, and that's fine. I do understand there was some controversial nature to some of the topics that he wrote about or whatnot, but don't make that made him any less of a great writer, and it definitely didn't change how I feel about them. And I hope you guys will check that video, and I hope you will read some Michael Crichton, because I really feel like he's starting to fade into obscurity, where a lot of people my age or older are the only ones who are talking about him anymore. And you know, there's a whole generation that's kind of missing out on his books. That was the goal of that video, was really to get some people who've never given him a try before to maybe pick up some and give him a shot. Because I really feel like I kind of go through, I think I went through 17 books in there that I've read of his, and just gave a quick thoughts about each one and why I think you guys should read them. And so I hope you can listen to that and pick, you know, a handful, 1, 2, or a dozen that you think would actually click with you, that you would like or whatever. So that was the goal with that one there. But moving on, I also did a new book haul. Book hauls, I think, always usually go over pretty well, because a lot of people like to see what some of these books are like, or hear, you know, what the edition is like, if it's an illustrated edition or a hardcover or whatnot, or what all is included. That's always the goal with a book haul. I never really like to think of it as a humble brag or anything, but one of the things that I highlighted in there was the Wizards of, or not just the Wizard, but the Books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, and that led me to talking about 10 fantasy authors of the female variety that I would like to read in, not really when I'm going to read them, but it's just as I would like to read. And you know what, that isn't just a video. I don't make videos like that just because. I do actually intend to read some of them. And what I want to say is, yes, I know I've already talked about starting Lycanius next. And you're like, okay, well, when are you actually planning on reading this? After Lycanius, the plan is to start the Godblind trilogy by Anna Stevens, which was number 2 in that video, in case you missed it or whatnot. So watch that video if you want some idea of what that is, because I not only do I want to read more female fantasy authors, but I also want to read more grimdark, and apparently Anna Stevens is of the House of Abercrombie when it comes to that. And I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm always ready for more Abercrombie-style grimdark. Now, moving on away from books here, I said I did want to kind of take it in a different direction here. I'm going to talk about TV and some movie news, actually, instead of just, you know, what we're doing and whatnot. First, the stuff that I actually have done. We finished Last Kingdom Season 4. I believe I've gotten a lot of people in the Discord talking about how, if you guys don't miss it, Discord, click the link, join. Lots of stuff we get to talk about in there. But a lot of people on there have started Last Kingdom, and they've all actually been very pleasantly surprised, and they've been very happy with the recommendation. So I'm glad. I realized when I used that whole Thrones word with it that I feel like, oh, I was setting the bar too high for people, but it doesn't seem to be the case. People seem to really be enjoying it, and it's just good television. So check that out. Season 4, just as good as anything they've done. I still think Season 3 is a little better, but Season 4, emotional, I'll put it that way. It definitely continues that trend of not being afraid to take beloved characters away from you and things like that. But in a show that's like that, you would think, oh, the biggest memories are going to be like the big epic battle moments of it. And they're good, don't get me wrong, but it's some of the character moments in it that are just right here. I mean, they They hit you in the feels numerous times in that season. So very amazing. Check it out, guys. Please do. I want to season 5, so please go watch it on Netflix now. Borrow someone's password if you don't have Netflix. Our plan now is to start Better Call Saul season 5 and also go back to Outlander. That's kind of the thing that we're going to kind of... Outlander's kind of be the one that we just kind of have to fill in time whenever we have time. Not like that. We're not planning to binge that one by any means, but we're almost done with season 1 with that, which is 16 episodes, which seems kind of long now. It seems like most series of that ilk now seem to be like 10 episodes. I think it was like a part 1 and a part 2, 8 and 8 or whatever. So we're almost done with that one. I think I've told you already, we're liking it quite a bit. So all those fears I had about it or whatever, yeah, it was what I suspected. It was just really bad marketing, because I think that there's plenty there for us dudes to really appreciate on Outlander. There's plenty there for both genders to check out, because it's a pretty swell time. It's not as good as Last Kingdom, but I mean, what is right now? Better Call Saul, though, I do want to say, I still see a lot of people that are like, oh, I watched like the first episode and I just didn't get into it. Guys, this isn't a Breaking Bad cash grab. That's a very good show, and I think that Bob Odenkirk needs your respect. So I need you to watch that show or whatnot. But I've heard season 5 is just as good as the first 4 have been, and that's I don't expect any. I mean, you got Vince Gilligan working, you got the Breaking Bad team working on it. You got rumors of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul both saying, that's Jesse and Walt in case you don't know, saying they would love to be on the last episode if they're asked. They would definitely do it. So I cannot recommend the show enough if you were a fan of Breaking Bad. It definitely. Is it as good? I mean, come on. That's like saying, is the prequel trilogy as good as the original trilogy when you talk of Star Wars or something? No. And it's better than the prequels, don't get me wrong. That's probably a really bad comparison. It's like saying, does Terminator 2 so... No, I forget it. I can't do this. What's better, Godfather 1 or 2, right? I'm going to get into that whole conversation, and then I'll completely derail here. But it stands along with it, I think. It is a very good complementary series to it. Doesn't ever reach the heights that Breaking Bad did, but you know, a lot of things, most things haven't reached the heights that Breaking Bad have. But Bob Odenkirk is nails in that show. He's so good. So please check that out. I think you'll have a good time. Other than that, we've been watching a lot of The Simpsons. You know, Disney Plus has all 30-something seasons of The Simpsons streaming. And I think back to when my parents used to kind of shelter us from The Simpsons because they thought it was a bad influence. And that's just hilarious now when you see some of the stuff that my kids watch. So I've been watching it, and the kids have been kind of watching with it, and they've been laughing their balls off, and I'm having a great time with it. And I think what I said on Twitter was that I feel like season 3 was the best season of The Simpsons, and I think I realized why that was, because when it did come out, I remember we watched like the first episode, and Homer was cussing at Bart, and my parents were like, nope. Very strict religious household when I was much younger, and parents wouldn't let us watch it until season 3 was when they finally buckled and let us watch it. And I think maybe that's why I feel that way. There's some nostalgia kind of tugging at me there, but it's amazing that I still remember so many of those season 3 episodes so well, especially when you consider it was 30 years ago. Anyway, all right. I don't want to talk about that anymore, but Simpsons, very, very funny that first decade, I think. I think it's kind of following that routine now where everybody says, oh, yeah, it's just not that funny anymore. I just feel like there's a point where they've done everything. You know, I mean, even South Park had that episode of Simpsons did it. I mean, they've done everything. What's left to do? So I don't know necessarily that Simpsons isn't good anymore as much as it's just they've run out of things to do. I don't know. I haven't watched a new episode of Simpsons that wasn't a Treehouse of Horror episode probably in 15 years. So I'm not the one to ask about this. If you're still a Simpsons enthusiast, that's great. But for me, going back and watching those old episodes, good times. And for me, that makes Disney Plus worth the money alone. So I have been very vocal about the whole streaming wars thing. Everybody that thought that Netflix was going to die when Disney Plus came out, I was like, they'll lose some customers, but they're not going to die. You can't underestimate the foothold and the head start that they had, the stranglehold they have on this market right now. And especially with Disney Plus being so cheap or whatever, lots of people are just getting both. You know, we got both. And I feel like Disney Plus is aimed more towards people who have kids or they're big Marvel or Star Wars honks. But, you know, having that Fox library really helped them out a lot. So there it is. Hey, Netflix and Disney Plus, both good. Who knew? Take them both over Hulu. Let's talk about a little bit of news, guys. New Zealand is open, and do you know what that means? It means Avatar 2 can... Now, if you were waiting for Avatar 2, whatever, you know what about that? Every time James Cameron takes this long to make a movie, I always count him out. And then you know what? It comes out and it's highest grossing movie of all time. So maybe James Cameron knows what he's doing. I feel like the ship sailed on Avatar. I feel like that first movie's become like a punchline at this point, which I think is kind of unfair, but I get it. But no, the whole thing about New Zealand being open is the Lord of the Rings television series gets to re-enter production. I said in my live stream that I was scared that the show was going to end up getting canceled if they couldn't resume work on it soon, because I had heard rumors of if something wasn't done by a certain date, it reverted back to the Tolkien estate. And if that was true, I was like, Amazon sank a lot of money into this. They're just going to cut their losses and move on if they've got to pay for that, because they paid a ton of money to get those rights. And so a lot riding on this, but you know, the virus that must not be named, it just threw a wrench into a lot of people's plans. But like I said, things are starting to slowly reopen with just more precautions being taken, and I think that's probably the way to go for sure. Couldn't just, you know, we can't just stay home forever, right? I mean, that's a conversation for another time. Obviously, I don't want to trigger anyone with that one. I'm just happy that the Lord of the Rings series looks like it's moving forward, because I was scared. I was very, very scared that this wasn't going to happen. And the reason I bring this up is I've had a lot of people like, you talk about how Lord of the Rings is your favorite ever, but you've done exactly 0 Lord of the Rings videos on this channel. I was waiting for this series again to kind of do a whole retrospective on the whole series or whatnot. So I hope that this is happening, because I would love to talk with you guys in depth about Lord of the Rings, because there's plenty to talk about, especially now that I got those new the unfinished books that Christopher Tolkien completed. So lots of new Lord of the Rings things to talk about from my perspective, as well as the oldies but goodies. What else? Taika Waititi is doing a Star Wars movie. And I had a lot of people like, are you excited? Because they knew I liked Thor Ragnarok. I had a great time with Thor Ragnarok. Taika Waititi did help. I think he directed an episode of The Mandalorian. He voiced the IG robot. I can't think of what number it was off the top of my head right now. But a lot of people asked me if I was excited about this, and the answer is no. No, I am not. I think that he's a really good filmmaker, at least the stuff that I've seen, that and Jojo Rabbit. I had a good time with both of those. But I think one of the perils of using that kind of humor in a Star Wars movie is how we end up The Last Jedi. And I don't feel like MCU humor works in the Star Wars universe. And I don't know, I could be wrong. Waititi could take this completely serious and not feel like he's got to put a bunch of humor in it. I don't know. I just feel like with Star Wars, the humor was always subtle. It was not over the top, you know, can you hear me now jokes. It was nothing like that. So I don't know. I mean, I want to be hopeful, but right now my hope rests for Star Wars is the future is on streaming. I've not hidden my feelings about the Kennedy regime with Lucasfilm. I feel like as long as she is in control of the movies, I don't feel like they're going to be anything that us longtime fans want. Whereas the TV stuff, the streaming stuff, is being done by Dave Filoni. And Dave Filoni is the man that I think should be given the keys to Lucasfilm, and he should be running the show. I think help us, Dave Filoni, are our only hope with the movies. I feel like he's the only one that can get those movies back on track. But I think he's happy doing the streaming stuff. But I at least feel like they should at least give him a movie to direct or something like that. And I feel like it will happen eventually, maybe. Here's the thing. I saw an article recently that said Dave Filoni's not worried about backlash on any of the streaming stuff with Star Wars. Do you know why? Because Star Wars fans know that he knows his shit. I mean, look, what did he do? He just put out like the Clone Wars, which I haven't watched yet, the final season of the Clone Wars. Over the top praise from old fans and new. They love it. You know why? Because Dave Filoni gets Star Wars. He gets it. Mandalorian Season 2, oh, well, they're going to have Ahsoka Tano. You know what everybody always said they wanted as Ahsoka Tano? Rosario Dawson. Guess who got cast as Ahsoka Tano? He gets it. He gets Star Wars, man. So, yeah, Dave Filoni, when he's running the movies someday, then I might get more optimistic. Right now, to me, the future of Star Wars is on streaming, and I think that they're going to prove that with Mandalorian Season 2 and whatever it is Dave Filoni does next, because he's going to be given some freedom, I think, after we've seen the over-the-top praise for the final season of the Clone Wars. You know what? I've said that the Clone Wars is such a great animated series because it fixed almost every problem I have with the prequel. You can't really fix a lot of the bad acting chops, but that's on George. He's not a director. You know, he's always been a visionary, a writer. He was not a director. He should have let someone direct those movies. But again, that's hindsight is 2020 on those. But yeah, you're gonna have Dave Filoni doing some more Clone Wars era stuff, or you know what, let him do some more Rebels era stuff. I'm fine with either. I'm fine with whatever Dave Filoni does, and if Jon Favreau wants to help out, awesome, awesome. You know, those two guys seem to at least understand mostly what makes Star Wars work, but mostly Dave Filoni over Jon Favreau. For me, that's my opinion, and that's how I feel about it. Another one is Mike Flanagan, who I think is the best director working in horror right now. He's going to be doing another Stephen King movie, and he's done Gerald's Game and he's done Dr. Sleep, which I think are two of the finest Stephen King adaptations that there is. This guy just gets Stephen King. He understands those books in a way that I think no one besides, oh man, what's his name? Guy who did Shawshank, the guy who did, God dang it, The Mist. He did The Green Mile. I can't think of the director's name right now, but he was the one that I thought understood King's books. He very clearly got them. But Mike Flanagan is going to be doing these writings. He's pinning the script. Right now he's not directing, but he is pinning the script for Revival, a Stephen King book I have not read. And I talked about that in a different video about Stephen King books I haven't read, but I intend to. There's a reason. There is a reason. So check that video out if you haven't. I'll tell you why on there. But anything that Mike Flanagan touches, I am going to watch. Haunting of Hill House. That's Mike Flanagan. Guys, he is a spectacular filmmaker, a great storyteller. And when you get him combined with my favorite storyteller, Stephen King, usually magic happens. I still can't believe Dr. Sleep flopped. I think it was very poorly marketed. I think if more people understood exactly what it was, it would have been a much bigger hit, because everyone I think that's checked it out on digital or Blu-ray now has been like, holy shit, that was a great movie. Such a satisfying conclusion to both, in my opinion, a better adaptation than the book and a satisfying sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It was a marriage that worked so well that I didn't care that it was 2.5 hours, and the director's cut was 3 hours. It was so good. It was so good. I thought that it was one of the best Stephen King adaptations that there is. And it gets a thing about most of the Stephen King adaptations are bad. They are. There are some really, really good ones in there though that people really just refuse to acknowledge. But anything that Mike Flanagan touches, anything that is adapted by Stephen King, even if I think it's going to be bad, I'll watch. But when you got Mike Flanagan doing it, it's going to be good. I'm not worried about it. I am curious to see if he ends up taking up the director's chair or who they get or whatever. But they've said that the team behind Dr. Sleep is working on it. So I'm there, and obviously I will read that book before that movie comes out or whatnot. That's about it for this week, guys. Lots of other little entertainment nuggets kind of going on right now. Hey, did you hear the rebooting Pirates of the Caribbean? Anyhow, been listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails this week. Don't know why. Nothing really kind of brought it on. Sometimes I'll just have YouTube on. It'll just do like recommended stuff when I'm listening to some music while I was studying. I don't have to study anymore because school's over. But one of the recommended things is it just started playing the album Year Zero, and I just started thinking about, I'm just kind of bored right now. I'm just going to rank the Nine Inch Nails albums, and then I just started listening to all of them. And it is a fun conversation whenever you start ranking albums and stuff like that, because obviously, what's more subjective than books? Music, and that can happen quite a bit with that. But I've been listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails this week, and I just underrated. I don't want to say underrated because they've been around for 30 years. Obviously, they're not underrated, but I don't feel like you hear much about talk about their legacy or whatnot. But what Trent has been able to do to change his sound so many times, I think only David Bowie changed his sounds more successfully than what Trent Reznor's done. So there's my music tidbit for the day. So guys, what are you watching? What are you reading? What do you listen to? What are you playing? Drop in the comments and let me know as we almost got to hit 10K, guys. We're about to hit 10Ks, and we're going to do a live stream, and I hope to see you guys there. I did actually post a question on the community board where I just presented the option for you to ask me a question, and I'll go through and I'll pick out like the 10, 20 best ones, and I'll answer them during the stream, because when it's just me and I'm trying to answer those and the questions are going like this, I feel like I'm missing a lot of those questions. Obviously, I can't read them. and I don't want to have to shortchange a lot of the answers so I can answer more or whatnot. So that's why I kind of did that. So hit the community tab if you haven't. Hit subscribe if you haven't. We're almost there. The pie in the sky goal for 2020 was 10K at the end of the year, and we're gonna hit it in May. That's amazing, guys. Thank you so much. So thank you for watching, guys. Drop in the comments. Let me know what you're up to, and have yourself a great week.